Welcome back to the Deep Dive, where we are looking into the book by author Matt Coxall. And today we're continuing our deep dive into Matt's guide, Agile How-To. Thrive as a development team member in Scrum and Kanban. Last time we reviewed the high-level view of the book, and this session we're really going to dig into specific areas that have a massive impact on a development team's day-to-day work.
Yeah, exactly. It's all about moving past, the what of Agile frameworks and getting right into the how. Matt breaks down the practical realities for developers and testers, giving you actionable insights you can apply immediately to genuinely enhance your team's output and, well, its overall health.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Let's get right into the heart of how development teams really make Agile principles sing. Now, Chapter 8 tackles practical challenges in Scrum development, navigating real-world complexity. Because life isn't always textbook Scrum, right?
Definitely not. Scrum provides a great framework, but the real world throws curveballs. Matt emphasizes that your proactive approach as a team member is crucial for navigating these bumps.
So what's the first common challenge?
Shifting requirements mid-sprint. It happens. A stakeholder has a new urgent idea.
Oh, yeah. How do you handle that without derailing everything?
First, assess the real impact with the product owner. How big is this change? Does it jeopardize the sprint goal? Communicate the potential disruption early. Then, negotiate trade-offs. Matt uses that brilliant full glass of water analogy. The sprint backlog is like a full glass. If you want to add more water, new work, you have to take some water out first, remove existing work of equivalent size priority. You can't just keep pouring more in, or it overflows and makes a mess, meaning missed commitments and stress.
So something has to give. You can't just absorb it.
Exactly. Protect the sprint goal and the team's commitment.
Okay, challenge number 2.
Unclear priorities. Sometimes the PO might struggle to give clear direction, or stories might still be vague despite refinement efforts.
Within.
Request clarity. Politely push the PO to prioritize. If stories are still fuzzy, propose refining them further before starting work. Maybe suggest quick priority checks during the daily scrum if things seem confusing.
Makes sense. Challenge 3.
Managing dependencies on other teams or external factors. This can bring your work to a screeching halt.
Yeah, waiting for that API.
Classic example. The key here is identifying dependencies as early as possible, ideally in refinement. Communicating proactively with the other party. Use your SM or PO to help facilitate if needed. And maybe building buffers into your plan if a dependency seems risky. Don't just wait and hope.
Okay, proactive communication. What's next?
A big one. Balancing speed with quality. The constant pressure to deliver faster can tempt teams to cut corners on quality.
How do you resist that pressure?
Matt is uncompromising here. Prioritize quality above all else. Set realistic commitments in planning based on delivering quality. Have a crystal clear, robust definition of done that includes things like code reviews, adequate test coverage, and no defects. Push hard for automation to make quality checks faster and more reliable. And if faced with the choice between hitting a deadline with poor quality or potentially adjusting scope, always negotiate to protect quality. Sacrificing quality for short-term speed is a recipe for long-term disaster.
It always catches up with you?
Always, and usually at the worst possible time.
Okay, final challenge in this section.
Handling technical debt. We talked about ignoring it being a red flag. This is about how to actively manage it.
Right.
Matt emphasizes it's a team challenge, not just a developer problem. You need to raise awareness of its impact. Quantify it if possible. Prioritize its reduction, actively allocate that 10-20% sprint capacity. Use metrics to justify the time investment to the PO. And reiterate that critical point. Don't let new defects or poorly written code contribute to more debt by slipping through the definition of done stage gate. Prevention is better than cure. Treat debt reduction as ongoing maintenance necessary for a healthy code base.
Okay, that covers the main Scrum challenges.
Yeah.
Matt then briefly touches on Kanban's flow focus in the next few chapters, right?
Yeah, chapters 9 through 12 provide a concise overview for teams using Kanban or Kanban-like systems. Chapter 9 is about visualizing workflow using the Kanban board and WIP limits. Chapter 10 covers managing cycle time and throughput, using those metrics to optimize flow. Chapter 11 discusses sustaining continuous flow through practices like respecting WIP, swarming on blockers, and limiting context switching. And Chapter 12 highlights how Kanban handles things like planning, reviews, and retrospectives, more ad hoc or on-demand, triggered by events like the backlog running low rather than fixed sprint boundaries. It's about maintaining that smooth, continuous flow of value.
Got it. A different rhythm to Scrum. Okay, let's pivot now to another major deep dive area you mentioned, Chapter 13, participating in product discovery. This sounds like it goes beyond just implementing stories.
It absolutely does. Often developers and testers are brought in only after the major decisions about what to build have already been made. Matt argues passionately that this is a huge missed opportunity. Product discovery is that crucial early phase where ideas are explored, validated, and refined into potential features. And your technical expertise, he says, is invaluable in bridging the gap between a high-level vision and something actually buildable and successful.
So what exactly is product discovery, according to Matt?
He defines it as that iterative process of really digging deep to understand the user's problem, exploring lots of different potential solutions, and rigorously validating those solutions, checking feasibility, desirability, viability before you commit to building anything significant.
So it's about de-risking ideas up front.
Exactly. Its core purpose is to make sure the team builds the right thing, not just builds the thing right. Key elements are understanding user needs through research, data, talking to users, collaborating widely on solutions with POs, designers, business experts, and tech folks, and validating technical feasibility early.
And from a developer's perspective.
Matt frames it as your golden opportunity to influence what gets built, adding your technical perspective right from the start.
Yeah.
It prevents costly rework later and can spark genuinely innovative solutions.
Okay, so why should I, as a developer or tester, get involved in discovery? What's the benefit?
Matt lays out several compelling reasons. First, to ensure technical feasibility. Your deep understanding of the code base, architecture, and technology landscape allows you to spot potential roadblocks or technical limitations early. Or, conversely, you might see a simpler, more elegant technical approach to achieve the desired outcome that others wouldn't think of.
So reality checking ideas.
Precisely. Second, to prevent rework. By thinking about edge cases, dependencies, integration challenges, and scalability upfront during discovery, you drastically reduce the risk of hitting major snags mid-sprint that force big design changes or architectural rework. It's about anticipating problems.
Investing time early saves time later.
Massively. Third, you can actually drive innovation. Your technical knowledge might inspire creative solutions. Maybe you know about a new library, an API, or an architectural pattern that could solve the user's problem in a completely novel or much more efficient way that non-technical people wouldn't be aware of. You can bring new possibilities to the table.
So moving beyond just implementation.
Exactly. And fourth, to understand the outcome-to-output impact. Discovery helps you connect the dots. You can help translate a desired business outcome, like increase user engagement by 20%, into concrete technical outputs, like specific features or changes. You can discuss the technical options and trade-offs needed to achieve that outcome. This ensures the work you do directly contributes to the bigger goal.
That sounds much more motivating too, understanding the why.
Absolutely. Matt's insight here is that getting involved in discovery fosters a much stronger sense of ownership. You shift from being just a code implementer to a strategic partner in shaping the product. It aligns your effort with real business value.
Okay, I'm sold on the why. How can developers and testers actively contribute to product discovery? What are the practical ways to get involved?
Matt suggests several concrete actions. First, join discovery workshops whenever possible. These are sessions where ideas get brainstormed and explored. Your role isn't just to sit quietly.
What should I do there?
Ask critical technical questions. How would this scale? What are the integration points? Does this fit our current architecture? Propose alternative technical approaches if an idea seems overly complex. Help clarify vague assumptions. Matt even suggests using tools like Miro or FigJam to quickly sketch out technical flows or diagrams during these sessions to aid understanding.
Be an active technical voice.
Exactly. Second, participate actively in epic and feature refinement. This is where those bigger ideas start getting broken down into more manageable chunks. Your input here ensures the resulting stories are technically sound, feasible, and well understood before they even hit sprint planning.
How do I add value there?
Collaborate closely with the product owner. Review proposed acceptance criteria for technical clarity and testability. Highlight potential risks, hidden complexities, or dependencies they might have missed.
And what about when things are really uncertain technically?
That's where you propose investigation spikes. If an epic or feature involves significant technical unknowns, maybe using a new technology, integrating with a complex third-party system, or potential performance bottlenecks suggest a time-boxed spike, say, let's dedicate 2 days next sprint to building a quick prototype or investigating the feasibility of this approach before we commit to the whole thing.
So use spikes to reduce uncertainty.
Precisely. It provides data to inform decisions. Third, advocate for edge cases. Users rarely stick to the perfect, happy path. Your job, drawing on your technical experience, is to think about what could go wrong.
How do I do that effectively?
Ask what-if questions constantly. What if the network connection drops mid-upload? What if the user enters invalid data? What if the downstream service is unavailable? Then work with the team to define how the system should handle these scenarios gracefully. Your experience helps spot common failure points.
Thinking like a tester, almost.
Exactly, building quality and resilience in from the start. And fourth, Matt really emphasizes empowered discovery through spikes. He believes developers shouldn't just wait to be asked to do a spike. They should proactively use spikes to lead parts of the discovery process alongside the PO.
So taking initiative with spikes.
Yes. Use spikes to investigate feasibility of new tech or complex integrations. Use them to prototype innovative solutions, building quick proofs of concept to demonstrate an idea or validate a core assumption, maybe even testing out a machine learning library. Use them to systematically uncover dependencies on other systems or teams.
And the benefits of this proactive spiking.
Spikes dramatically reduce risk by validating assumptions early with real code or investigation. They provide data-driven insights that help the product owner make better prioritization decisions. And they get developers and testers aligned on the technical approach before full implementation begins. Matt sees spikes as a key way you, the developer, can take an active shaping role, bridging that critical gap between a fuzzy idea and a successful execution.
That's empowering. What about collaborating with different stakeholders during discovery?
Essential. Matt stresses working closely with product owners. See them as your bridge to the business context. Ask them questions like, what's the core problem we're trying to solve here? And how will we know if we've succeeded? Engage with designers. Provide feedback early on the technical feasibility of their mockups. Suggest alternatives if something is technically very complex. Collaborate on interactive prototypes to validate user workflows before detailed design is locked down.
And users.
Participate in user feedback sessions if you can. Hear their problems and reactions firsthand. Observe how they interact with prototypes or existing software. Ask technical questions that might uncover hidden needs or integration opportunities based on what you hear. Be a user detective.
Matt includes a case study here, too.
He does, a really good one illustrating developer impact. A retail company wanted a new reserve online, pickup in-store feature. The developers got involved early in discovery.
What did they contribute?
They immediately highlighted potential issues with real-time inventory accuracy, a critical edge case. They proposed a much simpler technical solution using existing APIs instead of building a complex new system from scratch. And they insisted on running a spike to load test the proposed solution to ensure it could handle peak holiday traffic.
And the outcome.
Because of their early input in the spike, the feature launched smoothly, on time, with minimal nasty surprises. It significantly boosted customer satisfaction and actually increased in-store foot traffic for reserved items by 20%. A clear win driven by early technical involvement in discovery.
Wow, that really shows the tangible benefit. Okay, another reflection point from Matt.
Yes. He asks you to think. Were you involved in the discovery for the features you've worked on recently? Could your technical input have improved the solution or prevented some rework you experienced? Were you working towards a desired outcome, or you helped shape the technical output, or were you just handed a predefined output specification to implement? And his challenge, commit to proposing one spike during your next refinement session for a feature that has some technical uncertainty.
Great challenge.
Yeah.
Okay, moving into the final parts of the book. Matt covers some advanced topics and revisits pitfalls. Chapter 14 is building quality into development, calling it a mindset, not an afterthought. We touched on some of this, but what else does he cover?
He really doubles down on quality being everyone's responsibility and intrinsic to the process. He talks about writing testable code, things like keeping functions small and focused, using dependency injection, avoiding hidden side effects, always asking yourself, how would I write an automated test for this before you even write the code?
Thinking about testability up front.
Exactly. He then dives deeper into leveraging automated testing, discusses the different types, unit, integration, and the importance of mocking dependencies here, and end-to-end E2E tests that simulate real user workflows.
Does he recommend specific tools?
He mentions common ones across languages: Jest, PyTest, unit-for-unit tests, Cypress, Selenium, Playwright for E2E tests, but emphasizes the principles matter more than the specific tool. He talks about writing effective tests, following patterns like a range act assert, AAA, focusing on testing edge cases, not just the happy path.
Mm-hmm.
He revisits CI/CD for quality, stressing how automating builds and tests catches errors immediately, and peer reviews, emphasizing their role in not just finding bugs, but also sharing knowledge and ensuring consistency. Keep those pull requests small and focused.
And collaborating with testers.
He calls testers your allies in quality. Define test cases together, maybe do some pair testing for exploratory sessions, share the responsibility. Quality is a team game.
And technical debt again.
Yes, reinforcing the need to handle technical debt proactively, allocate that 10-20% capacity, use metrics to justify the investment, and crucially, do not let defects through the definition of done. It's an unavoidable cost of development, but it must be managed, not ignored.
Okay, quality is foundational. Chapter 15 is about driving innovation with development practices beyond just building. How can developers be innovators?
Matt argues developers are uniquely positioned for innovation because you understand the code base intimately, you spot patterns, you know what's technically feasible or becoming feasible. Your role isn't just to build what's asked, but also to explore, test, and refine new ideas.
So how do you foster that?
He talks about fostering an innovation culture, encourage experimentation through spikes and proofs of concept, use retrospectives not just to fix problems, but also to brainstorm innovative solutions, create dedicated space for creativity sometimes, like internal hackathons or innovation days.
And using agile practices themselves for innovation.
Yeah, like using the MVP approach to test innovative ideas quickly with real users, embracing those frequent feedback loops to iterate on new concepts.
What about specific technical practices for innovation?
This is where it gets exciting. He encourages developers to experiment with emerging technologies, things like machine learning, serverless architectures, progressive web apps, PWAs. See how they might apply to your product.
And AI. That's huge now.
Absolutely. He specifically calls out AI for coding, using tools like GitHub Copilot or ChatGPT for generating code snippets, optimizing algorithms, debugging tricky issues, even writing documentation. He suggests piloting specific AI-assisted workflows within the team.
Okay.
Also, automate for efficiency. Continuously look for manual, repetitive, error-prone tasks and automate them beyond basic CI/CD. Think about blue-green deployments, static analysis tools, maybe even AI-driven test automation platforms like Mabel or Testim.
Freeing up time for higher value work.
Exactly, and optimize performance. Continuously look for ways to make the application faster and more efficient, refactoring slow database queries, implementing better caching strategies, lazy loading resources. He even mentions AI for performance tuning, using tools like AWS DevOps Guru or Dynatrace that leverage AI to identify performance bottlenecks.
So innovation isn't just big new features, it's also continuous technical improvement.
Precisely. Chapter 16 then looks at integrating Agile with DevOps, the engine for delivery.
How does Matt see these two working together?
He sees them as incredibly complementary. DevOps, he explains, is about unifying development, devs, and operations through culture, practices, and tools to deliver software faster and more reliably. It's about automation, collaboration, and feedback loops.
And Agile fits into that how?
They're better together. Agile provides the iterative framework for developing value quickly. DevOps provides the automation engine, especially CI/CD pipelines, to deploy that value frequently, safely, and reliably. Agile fosters collaboration within the dev team. DevOps extends that collaboration across the entire value stream, including ops.
So what are the key practices developers need to embrace here?
Things like continuous integration, automating builds and tests, failing fast. Continuous delivery, automating deployment pipelines, using feature flags, having rollback plans. Implementing robust monitoring and feedback, tracking application performance, system health, user behavior with tools like New Relic or Datadog to understand the impact of releases, streamlining collaboration using shared dashboards and including ops and retros, using infrastructure as code, automating repetitive tasks, and embedding security throughout the lifecycle, DevSecOps.
It's about the whole pipeline, really.
Exactly. Taking responsibility for the code not just until it's done, but until it's running successfully and delivering value in production.
Okay, shifting focus to collaboration again. Chapter 17, interfacing with product owners, your product's guardian.
Yeah, the PO role is crucial. They're responsible for maximizing the value the team produces, managing the backlog, clarifying requirements, and being the voice of the customer and stakeholders. Matt calls them your guide to what matters most.
And how can developers work effectively with the PO, especially thinking back to that discovery phase? Matt mentions developers creating stories during spikes.
Yes, this is a key collaboration point. When you do a spike, you don't just do the research. You need to document your findings clearly. Based on what you learn, you can then define concrete outcomes, often by drafting well-scoped user stories yourself or collaboratively with the PO.
So the spike output feeds directly into the backlog.
It should. You collaborate with the PO to refine the acceptance criteria for those new stories, making sure to include any edge cases or constraints you discovered during the spike. Matt sees spikes as a prime opportunity for developers to break down large, ambiguous ideas into invest-ready stories. Independent, negotiable, valuable, estimable, small, testable.
Beyond spikes, how else do developers collaborate effectively with POs?
Clarify user stories relentlessly. Ask questions, identify gaps, use those unmet criteria as a checklist. Participate actively in backlog refinement, evaluating technical feasibility, helping break down large stories, and surfacing dependencies the PO might not see. Provide technical context. Explain technical complexities or trade-offs in terms the PO can understand, focusing on the impact on the user or the business goals. Simplify without jargon. Help them weigh options.
What about common challenges in the dev-PO relationship? Matt covers those.
He does. One is misaligned priorities. Maybe the PO is pushing for something the team sees as low value or high risk. Matt suggests using data, like usage stats, performance metrics, support tickets, to drive the discussion and make your case. Frame it in terms of impact. Focusing on this bug fix will directly address the top reason users are churning.
Data-driven arguments.
Exactly. Another is vague requirements. We've talked about this, but the advice is consistent. Ask probing questions. What's the primary user goal here? Can you give me a specific example? Matt states this is probably the single greatest cause of failed deliveries, building the wrong thing due to misunderstanding.
And a dreaded scope creep mid-spread.
Matt's advice is firm. Do not accept it directly into the sprint without discussion. Ask the PO to create a new story and add it to the product backlog. Then, if it's truly urgent and aligns with the sprint goal, suggest a quick mini planning session involving the team to decide if this new story can replace an existing, lower priority story already in the sprint. Push for adjustments to maintain the agreed sprint capacity and focus. Protect the commitment.
So manage it formally. Don't just squeeze it in.
Precisely. And finally, Matt encourages developers to collaborate beyond the backlog. Advocate for user needs based on your technical understanding, provide feedback on the overall product direction, and build a strong, trusting working relationship with your PO.
Good advice. Chapter 18 shifts to collaboration with Scrum Masters, your ally in productivity.
Right. The SM isn't a manager, but a coach, facilitator, and servant leader. Their focus is on the team's process, effectiveness, and removing impediments. They help the team get better at Agile.
So how should I, as a developer, work with my Scrum Master?
Leverage them to remove blockers. Don't struggle silently. Raise impediments early, give the SM clear context, and let them help clear the path, especially for things outside the team's direct control. Partner in facilitating Scrum events. Be an active participant. Give concise updates in the daily Scrum. Contribute thoughtfully in retrospectives and planning. Help the SM make these events effective. And collaborate on continuous improvement. The SM often tracks metrics or observes team dynamics. Work with them to analyze bottlenecks, suggest process experiments, and implement improvements identified in retrospectives. They are your partner in making the team better.
What if there are challenges, like a misaligned SM or one who isn't removing blockers?
Matt suggests addressing it constructively.
Right.
If priorities seem misaligned, frame your concerns in terms of sprint outcomes or team impediments. If you feel the SM is over-facilitating and not letting the team self-organize, perhaps raise it in a retrospective. If blockers aren't being addressed, follow up with the SM, providing specific details and impact. Open communication is key.
Okay. And the last chapter in this section, chapter 19, is supporting the business vision, connecting your code to purpose. Why is this important for developers?
Matt argues it's crucial for motivation and effectiveness. The business vision is the why behind the product the user needs it addresses, the organizational goals it supports, its place in the market.
And why should I, as a developer coding away, care about that high-level vision?
Because understanding it helps you build the right things. It helps you make informed technical decisions, like designing for scalability if the vision involves rapid growth. It helps you see the bigger picture of how your work contributes, which Matt says is a huge motivator.
So how do I actively support the vision?
Understand user needs, participate in research. Ask why questions about features. Advocate for simplicity that solves the core problem. Align with organizational goals, collaborate with the PO to understand how your work fits into the company's strategy, help balance technical needs with business priorities. And communicate the impact of your technical work in business terms, explain how that refactoring project enables future features or improves stability, highlighting the long-term value.
How can I bridge that gap between tech and business?
Matt suggests attending relevant stakeholder meetings if possible, sharing technical insights with non-technical teams in an accessible way, and advocating for technical innovations that could significantly advance the business vision. Be an ambassador for technology's potential.
Connecting the code to the bigger purpose. I like that. Okay, we've covered a lot of ground. Let's now really focus on our third deep dive area, Chapter 20, Common Pitfalls for Developers and Testers in Agile. Matt dedicates a whole chapter to this, so it must be important.
Incredibly important. He frames this as avoiding the landmines. Agile is powerful, but it's definitely not foolproof. Understanding and proactively tackling these common pitfalls, Matt argues, is absolutely critical for your productivity, for smooth workflows, and for consistently delivering that high-quality software we've been talking about. This is the super practical what to watch out for guide.
Okay, let's dig into them. Matt lists 7 critical pitfalls. What's number 1?
Pitfall 1. Poorly defined backlog items. This is a monster. We touched on it in planning, but Matt gives it top billing as a pitfall. Ambiguous user stories, unclear acceptance criteria. They just lead to developer and tester confusion, struggle, inevitable rework, frustration, and delayed deliveries.
And he says this is a primary cause of missed sprint goals.
Absolutely. And it often leads to that unfair perception that the team is rubbish when actually they were set up to fail by unclear requirements. It's like being asked to build something without proper blueprints.
So how do we avoid this landmine?
Matt reiterates a few key defenses. First, push for a solid definition of ready door. Get the team and PO to agree on criteria a story must meet before it's even considered ready for a sprint. Things like clear value statement, well-defined acceptance criteria, dependencies identified, estimated by the team.
So quality gate before the sprint starts.
Exactly. Second, ask relentless clarifying questions during backlog refinement. Dig deep. Uncover those milling details. Ask things like, what should happen if the user enters invalid data here? Or, how should this look on mobile?
Don't assume anything.
Never assume. And third, collaborate intensively with the product owner during refinement to break down vague epics or stories into smaller, concrete, well-defined tasks that are easy to understand, estimate, and test. Matt's advice remains stark. If a story feels vague or ill-defined, say no to bringing it into the sprint until it's clarified. It's better to delay it than to fail trying to build it.
Okay, pitfall number 1, fight ambiguity. What's number 2?
Pitfall 2, ignoring technical debt. We've danced around this, but Matt calls it out as a major pitfall. Constantly prioritizing short-term delivery speed over code quality and maintainability leads to this buildup of debt.
And the symptoms are slow builds, bugs.
Yeah, slow builds, flaky tests, frequent regressions, difficulty onboarding new team members because the code is a mess. It just grinds productivity down and makes development increasingly painful and frustrating. It's death by 1,000 cuts.
So how do we avoid letting debt accumulate unchecked?
First, address debt proactively and regularly. Don't wait for it to become a crisis. Formally allocate dedicated time in each sprint. Matt again suggests that 10-20% capacity guidelines specifically for refactoring, improving test coverage, or paying down existing debt. Make it routine, like cleaning your tools. Second, highlight the long-term impact to the PO and stakeholders. Explain how reducing debt benefits them. Use data if you can. Fixing this architectural issue will allow us to deliver feature X twice as fast, or improving test coverage here will reduce production bugs by Y%. Connect it to business value.
Make the invisible visible.
Exactly. And third, and Matt considers this absolutely crucial, enforce quality at the definition of done beat. Do not let stories with known defects or sloppy code pass as done. Fix it now. He repeats the warning. A defect that takes an hour to fix today might take days or weeks to fix in 6 months when it's entangled with other changes. Be vigilant at that quality gate. Technical debt is unavoidable to some degree, but it must be managed. Treat its reduction as a necessary investment, not an optional nice-to-have.
Okay, solid advice. Pitfall number 3.
Pitfall 3, overcommitment in sprints. Teams consistently trying to cram too much work into a sprint, often due to optimism, pressure, or poor estimation.
The result being unfinished work, carryovers.
Yep, unfinished stories piling up, sprint goals missed, deadlines slipping, team morale dropping due to constant pressure and failure, potential burnout. It's a common trap.
How do teams avoid falling into it?
First, Use historical velocity as a realistic guide, not as a target to beat every single sprint. Base your commitments on what the team has actually demonstrated they can deliver sustainably, not on wishful thinking.
Be data-informed.
Yes. Second, prioritize ruthlessly with the PO. Focus on delivering the most valuable items that fit within your realistic capacity. Matt suggests adopting the mantra, deliver quality, not quantity. It's better to finish fewer things well. And third, plan for the unknown. Actively discuss potential risks during sprint planning. Leave some buffer capacity in your plan for unexpected issues, urgent bugs, or unavoidable interruptions. Don't schedule every minute. Reality always intervenes.
Build in some slack. Makes sense. Pitfall number 4.
Pitfall 4. Poor collaboration between developers and testers. This happens when these roles operate in separate silos, often with testing only happening at the very end.
The old throw-it-over-the-wall approach.
Exactly. And the result? Quality suffers. Bugs are found late in the process when they're much harder and more expensive to fix. It leads to higher defect rates, delayed releases, and friction between the roles.
So how do you break down that wall?
Matt strongly advocates adopt shift-left testing. This means involving testers or the testing mindset much earlier in the process. For instance, developers and testers should ideally pair up to define test cases and acceptance criteria during story refinement before coding even starts. Testers should also be doing their own individual backlog refinement alongside developers, thinking about testability and scenarios up front.
Get testing involved from the very beginning.
Absolutely. Also, automate testing wherever practical. This reduces the burden of manual regression testing, freeing up testers to focus on more valuable exploratory testing, usability testing, or validating complex scenarios. Automation supports early collaboration. Matt's core message here: quality is a whole team responsibility. Early, continuous collaboration between developers and testers is essential to prevent those nasty late-cycle surprises.
Okay, pitfall 5.
Pitfall 5. Inadequate handling of dependencies. This is about relying on other teams, external systems, or third-party tools, and not managing those dependencies effectively.
Yeah, these can totally block you.
They really can. Stories get stuck in progress for days or weeks, frustrating the team and jeopardizing the sprint goal.
So how do you manage dependencies better?
First, map dependencies explicitly and early. Use refinement and planning sessions to identify all known upstream, things you need from others, and downstream, things others need from you, dependencies for the stories you're considering. Make them visible.
Don't let them be surprises.
Right. Second, proactively work to resolve potential blockers. Don't just wait. Leverage your Scrum Master or product owner to communicate and coordinate with external teams or stakeholders. If you know you'll need an API from Team B, start that conversation now. Don't wait until you need it mid-sprint. If it's delayed, ask for alternatives like a stub or a mock service so you can keep making progress.
Be proactive, not reactive.
Exactly. And third, visualize dependencies. Maybe use specific tags or colors on your Kanban board or link related items in your tracking tool. Keep them visible so the team and SM can track their status and actively manage them.
Okay, dependency management is key. Pitfall number 6.
Pitfall 6. Neglecting retrospectives. This happens when teams rush through retros, treat them as a tick box exercise, or worse, skip them altogether because they're too busy.
But retros are where you improve, right?
Exactly. Skipping or short-changing retros means missing critical opportunities for learning and continuous improvement. Recurring problems never get addressed, frustrations fester, and team morale can decline. It's like driving without ever checking your mirrors or adjusting your course.
So how do you make retrospectives meaningful?
First, come prepared. Don't just show up cold. Take a few minutes beforehand to reflect on the sprint. What went well? What challenges arose? What ideas do you have? Bring concrete, constructive feedback. Second, focus on solutions and experiments. Discuss challenges, yes, but collaboratively brainstorm potential improvements. Aim to identify 1-2 small, actionable experiments the team can try in the next sprint. For example, if our meetings are running long, let's experiment with using a stricter, time-boxed agenda for the next sprint. Matt's insight again. Retrospectives are your prime opportunity to shape how your team works. Don't waste it.
Treat it seriously. Okay, the final pitfall, number 7.
Pitfall 7. Lack of focus on the sprint goal. This is when the team treats the sprint backlog as just a random collection of unrelated tasks, rather than a coherent body of work aimed at achieving a specific shared objective.
What's the consequence of that?
The increment delivered at the end might lack coherence or tangible value from a stakeholder perspective. It feels like a scattered effort, not a focused delivery. This can reduce stakeholder confidence and make it hard to articulate what the team actually achieved.
That's how you maintain that focus.
First, define a clear, compelling sprint goal during planning. Ensure that the stories selected for the sprint actually contribute meaningfully to achieving that goal. The goal provides the why for the sprint.
Make sure the goal is front and center.
Yes. Second, regularly revisit the goal. Use the daily Scrum not just to report on tasks, but to discuss progress towards the sprint goal. Ask questions like, how does what I'm doing today move us closer to the goal? Or, are there any impediments threatening the goal?
Keep it top of mind.
Exactly. And third, if new work or requests arise mid-sprint, rigorously evaluate their impact on the current sprint goal before agreeing to take them on. Does this new item contribute to the goal? If not, can it wait? Protect the focus of the sprint.
Wow, those 7 pitfalls cover a lot of common pain points.
Yeah.
Matt includes a case study for this chapter, too.
He does, a nice turnaround story. A team building a financial app was really struggling, vague requirements, testing bottlenecks causing delays, frequently missed sprint goals, low morale.
Sounds familiar for some teams, unfortunately. What do they do?
They tackled several of these pitfalls head-on. They significantly improved their backlog refinement process, insisting on clearer acceptance criteria and identifying dependencies much earlier, addressing pitfall 1 and 5. They invested heavily in automating their regression test suite, which dramatically reduced the QA bottleneck, addressing pitfall 4. And they became religiously focused on defining a clear sprint goal each sprint and ensuring every story tied back to a specific product objective, addressing pitfall 7.
And did it work?
The results were impressive. Matt reports that within just 2 months, their velocity stabilized and became more predictable, their defect rate dropped by over 30%, and stakeholder satisfaction saw a dramatic improvement. It really demonstrates how tackling these fundamental pitfalls can turn things around. It's about fixing the process, not just working harder.
That's encouraging, and Matt ends this critically chapter with another reflection for the listener.
Yes. He asks you to think about a specific challenge you faced in a recent sprint. Could it be traced back to one of these pitfalls? Unclear stories, overcommitment, poor collaboration, hidden dependencies. How could it have been prevented or addressed earlier? And then the challenge. Set a personal goal for your next sprint related to avoiding one of these pitfalls. Maybe commit to pushing for clearer acceptance criteria in your next refinement session, or proactively mapping dependencies for your stories. Take one concrete step.
Powerful stuff. Okay, we've covered the foundations, the values, the day-to-day discovery, and the pitfalls. What's in the final part of the book? Matt talks about thriving and debunking myths.
Exactly. The last couple of chapters round things out nicely. Chapter 21 tackles debunking common Agile misconceptions, separating fact from fiction. Because these myths often undermine Agile's effectiveness.
Like what kind of myths?
Well, misconception 1. Agile means no planning. Totally false. Matt clarifies, Agile emphasizes adaptive planning. There's still planning at multiple levels, roadmaps, release plans, sprint plans, daily adjustments. It's about balancing foresight with the flexibility to respond to new information.
Good distinction.
Misconception 2. Agile is faster development. Not necessarily. Agile focuses on delivering value sooner and more frequently and maximizing outcomes. It's about optimizing for value delivery and feedback loops, even if the overall development time isn't drastically shorter. Success is measured by value and impact, not just lines of code or number of features.
Right, value over volume.
Misconception 3. Agile eliminates documentation. We covered this, but it bears repeating. Agile values working software over comprehensive documentation, but it absolutely encourages relevant, concise, and valuable documentation like automated API docs, clear architectural diagrams, or well-commented code. Just enough, just in time.
Balance again.
And misconception 4. Agile works without discipline. Matt argues the exact opposite is true. Agile requires immense discipline from the team discipline to stick to the process, maintain transparency, hold each other accountable, focus on quality, and continuously improve. Without discipline, Agile just descends into chaos, or what some call flaccid Agile.
That's a strong counterpoint. Okay, and the final chapter, chapter 22, brings it all together. Thriving in an Agile development team. Your path forward.
Yeah, this chapter focuses on the key skills and mindsets you need to cultivate to truly thrive, not just survive, in an agile environment.
What are some of those key skills?
He highlights three main ones. First, mastering communication. We've seen this theme throughout. Asking good questions, clearly sharing progress and blockers, actively listening to understand others. It's the bedrock of collaboration.
Makes sense.
Second, embracing continuous learning. Staying curious about new technologies, frameworks, tools like AI assistants, and techniques. Regularly reflecting on your own performance and growth areas. Maybe using feedback from retrospectives. Actively seeking feedback from others. Matt has a great line. Only you can better you.
Love that. Taking ownership of your growth.
Exactly. And third, taking ownership. Delivering on your commitments, thinking beyond just your assigned tasks to contribute to the overall sprint and product vision, being proactive in identifying problems and driving solutions, not just waiting to be told what to do.
So communication, learning, ownership. What about mindsets?
He emphasizes three crucial mindsets. First, a relentless focus on value. Always asking, why are we building this? Understanding user needs, challenging work that seems to offer little value, connecting your technical work back to the customer or business benefit. Second, adaptability to change, embracing feedback, even critical feedback, as an opportunity to learn, staying positive and resilient when priorities inevitably shift, balancing structure with responsiveness. Flexibility is key.
And the third mindset?
Collaborating without ego. Being willing to help teammates, even if it's not your task. Welcoming different perspectives and ideas, even if they challenge your own. Staying humble, acknowledging mistakes, and learning from them. Fostering that we're all in this together, team spirit.
Value, adaptability, collaboration. That sums it up well. Does Matt end with a final case study?
He does, a nice one about a junior developer's journey. It shows how, by focusing on transparency, actively contributing in refinement sessions, asking clarifying questions, and consistently advocating for quality and user value, this developer quickly earned the trust of the team and stakeholders, helped improve velocity, reduced missed goals, and really started thriving. It illustrates that these principles work in practice.
That's great. So a final reflection point from the book.
Just encouragement to take time to reflect on your own agile journey. What have you learned? What practices are you applying well? Where are your biggest opportunities for growth? Keep iterating on yourself, just like you iterate on the product.
Fantastic. Well, we have certainly journeyed deep today into how you, as a development team member, can truly thrive in Agile, drawing all these powerful practical insights from Matthew Coxall's guide.
Yeah, we covered a lot. From understanding those core principles of Scrum and Kanban, really digging into the Agile values and accountability, the importance of participating in product discovery, and maybe most critically, how to navigate and avoid those common pitfalls. You should have a really solid toolkit now.
I think the core message that comes through so strongly from Matt's work is that Agile success isn't just about ticking boxes or following processes rigidly. It's about a fundamental shift in mindset.
Absolutely. A mindset of continuous improvement, of relentless collaboration, and maintaining that unwavering focus on delivering genuine value. Your technical skills are obviously the engine, but Matt argues your adaptability, your ownership, your communication, that's the fuel that really propels the team forward.
And maybe a final provocative thought for you, the listener, inspired by this. In a world that's constantly changing, perhaps the greatest skill isn't knowing all the answers up front, but rather mastering the ability to learn, to adapt, and to consistently drive impact, sprint after sprint after sprint. How will you take these insights from Matt Coxall and start redefining what thriving looks like in your own daily work? Not just for yourself, but for your entire team and ultimately for the users you serve.
This has been a fantastic deep dive, really unpacking some incredibly valuable insights from Matt Coxall's Agile How-To. We've gone from the core values and why they matter to your vital role in product discovery, busting some persistent myths, and finally, nailing down those skills and mindsets for truly thriving. These really feel like principles that can elevate anyone's game as a developer or tester on an Agile team.
Absolutely. And maybe a final thought for everyone listening. Reflecting on everything we've discussed today, what's maybe one small concrete change you could commit to trying in your very next sprint? One thing to embody these principles a bit more and help yourself and your team thrive just that little bit better.
That's a great question to ponder. Thank you so much for sharing all that insight. And thank you for joining us for this deep dive. Follow this podcast and find the books through agileproducthub.com.